Support Narrative's independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative and check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe and download.
We made it. We made it to Friday. That was the longest, most complicated week in the entire planet, and we made it to Friday. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Narrative Live. We're joined today by the amazing Andrew Laufer, who's a civil rights lawyer, as many of you know from Twitter, a Twitter phenomenon, I would say. And of course, Eric Garland is here, and Lincoln's Bible is here. That was a bit of an exhausting week, I'd say. I'm a little exhausted after that one. You had a great summary.
That wasn't that bad a month.
Now, you had a great summary earlier on. What are you drinking tonight?
I'm not sure.
But it looks delicious. It looks refreshing.
It has freshness in it. I can tell you that. And I think, can you hear the footsteps? That's the silent one.
Silent one.
Thank you.
Well, you're at home, so if you get roofied, you should be okay, right? I mean,
wow, you went there.
Otherwise, check your drink. But when you're, quarantinis, you don't have to care.
With me, so that's always okay.
Just to make sure Andrew knows this is a Friday show, so we have a very loose sort of no format. But
I may have to grab the scotch at this point.
Yeah, go for it. You know, it's absolutely that's what this show is about, because everyone needs to relax at the end of the week. LB, you had a great summary earlier on when we were talking on the phone about how the week started and then the week ended, and then there's more. Something about the week started with Manafort turning out to be an intelligence asset, basically.
Oh yes, I can't believe it's all been in 1 week.
Yeah.
So in 1 week, we learned, that Paul Manafort he's a Russian intelligence asset.
Likely,
and he knew he was working with the Kremlin, and everything was exactly as it appeared to all of us, 4 years ago when we were all screaming about it. And so, yes, so very Kremlin, Manafort in the Kremlin. And then we find out Bannon is a fraud. Yeah.
So you got the campaign chairman and then the campaign CEO of Donald Trump, both being caught up in a little bit of trouble. At the start of the week, we had Manafort turning out to be a Russian spy, and then at the end of the week, there's Bannon.
Well, I have a question right now, actually, for Andy. So, is some of the stuff that came out in the Senate Intelligence Report, it seems like there's more crimes in there, Andy. So
it seems like it's a never-ending reservoir of felonies. Think of it like as so many geyser of crime that just spewed forth, and we were too close. It's everywhere. I mean, it's chock full of it. Forget all the nonsense, political stuff at the end that Rubio and his crew there say, oh, there's no collusion. I mean, the collusion, first off, it's such a misnomer that it's not even. Yeah. It's not part of a criminal statute. There's clear conspiracy here. There's clear intent to defraud the United States of America. There's these guys are all done. I mean, as soon as Biden gets sworn in, he's going to let his DOJ do what they need to do. He's not going to be involved in any of that. And it's going to be a field day. They're going to say it's going to be so much. They're going to be sending their first year, associates at DOJ to prosecute these guys, because it's just going to be so many crimes. It's crazy.
Seems like it's even happening before the election. I mean, it seems like there was just this indictment that came down today. Eric, you know a lot about that one, involving a Russian businessman, I guess, / spy.
Well, this is an American citizen who served in the United States Army and became a member of the Special Forces and was a witting agent for the Russian intelligence services starting when he was 21. His mother is Russian. He goes over age 21 and gets betrothed to the daughter of a Russian military officer, and comes back and basically enlists in the United States Armed Forces on false pretenses, joins the Special Forces, and betrays his country, betrays all his oaths, betrays his top secret clearance, basically everything we ever entrusted in the guy. The whole time, I mean, starting in 1996, through damn near present day, he was working for Russia the whole time.
Doing what kind of things? What was he doing?
Yeah, what was he doing?
He was the worst kind of espionage, where he was not only was this Mr. Dobbins, was he disclosing what kind of operations they were doing he was first in the chemical unit and then a Green Beret.
Yeah.
So he was describing what kinds of equipment they had, what kind of operations they went on. And more than that, he disclosed the profiles of his fellow service members to Russian intelligence with the hopes of recruiting them for Russian espionage. And the language at the National Security Division couldn't have been any stronger. They said, you take, speaking how long this week is, it's Trump era time dilation, where 5 days, it's like, just so much has gone on. They said, bookend this week, where you start with the indictment of Ma for China and this nutsack over here for Russia. This tells us we cannot sleep on our two, I forget if it was vicious or most, whatever, our nastiest adversaries, Russia and China. So blooms off the rose. Let's cut the shit, guys. Russia and China are basically at war with us. And they have been for years through espionage. And this is not. What's that?
Yeah. I think they have those really nice yachts. So
They do.
Yeah. I didn't know Elaine
Eric,
Chao's company actually made.
What did Director Ray? Oh, I'm sorry, Zev. I was going to say, what did Director Ray say about how often FBI institutes a new counterintelligence investigation against Chinese Beijing asset?
Look, you're an attorney and you know more about prosecution than I do, but he said one case every 10 hours. Is that a lot for us? I mean, from my perspective, I heard it was a lot, but what do you think?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Pretty much 10 hours. Wow. So we know what we're dealing with here. We were going to spend
brand
a lot of
new
time.
one since breakfast. Like, you had your nut and honey, you got your coffee, and since somewhere between now and then, they opened a brand new counterintelligence case against China. And, you're going to go home, finish your cocktails, get some dinner, go to sleep, wake up, there'll be a second one. I mean, that's kind of nuts.
And when do we think they started the one on Steve Bannon?
I don't know. How long has he been unable to sleep with women? 30, 40 years?
I want to talk a lot about Steve Bannon today.
There's another term. What's the term, LB? The great what horde? The great horde of...
The unfuckable horde?
The unfuckable horde.
What is that?
I don't know. When did he join that legion in his 3 polo shirts? Because as long as you're in the great unfuckable horde, you can be recruited.
I don't know that he joined it. I think he's the Pied Piper back from his IGE days. His whole thing was to get into gaming chat rooms, get into sort of unearth people, right? Go find
Recruiting.
Recruiting, but more like unearthing and then putting profiles into buckets and then starting his radicalization campaigns.
You know what we should do? We should go back to the very beginning.
He's a professional propagandist.
Let's go to the very beginning of the Steve Bannon story. Shall we? Let's go to the time.
Make his mother and father never meet or have sex?
That Stephen Bannon was also involved in the Iran-Contra hostage crisis. It's an interesting story. He was a member of the U.S. Navy. Sorry. He was that too, but he was a member of the U.S. Navy. Albeit, I've got a little great clip from the Washington Post, actually, that I can play to explain some of this. Yeah. So let me do that, and then your microphones are on as we watch this, but it'll explain to you how Steve Bannon began his illustrious career.
He was on a Navy destroyer as a navigator and a lieutenant junior grade when that ship went to the Gulf of Oman. Shortly before, there was a rescue mission of 52 hostages being held in Tehran.
Good evening. The U.S. Embassy in Tehran has been invaded and occupied by Iranian students.
Bannon has said that he really wasn't political until he got in the Navy and watched the Iran hostage rescue mission fiasco.
8 of the crewmen of the 2 aircraft which collided were killed. And several.
He wasn't there when it actually happens. He was sort of on the edge of it, but he had seen things building up. He was near.
Oh, so this happens again. Sorry, I apologize for that cutting out. But he was near, they say. But the thing is, he leaves. Explain the foster. Let's go back and tell the story from our perspective. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, he was actually in the Naval Reserve for like 3 years in the late 70s, and then joined the Foster in 78 as a navigator. And so what that meant was he was privy. If you look at those positions, and I'm no expert, but I've looked at this.
You're an expert.
But if you, in those positions, they're sort of mid-level officers that are privy to the highest level classification, because the navigator is the one that has to know where they're going and often why. Whereas, so something that's sort of a more covert mission, that maybe the rest of the crew doesn't know, where we're headed, but we'll follow our orders. Bannon would have been so the lowest officer, with the captain, everybody in a tighter little circle of information, knowing where it's going to go. So
what was your naval?
You'd be cut in on threat. You'd be cut in on
Yes.
threat assessment as well.
Okay.
You're cutting on it all. And so we do also know in this era, out of the Soviet Union, we have quite a bit of stuff from them. And there are several cases and examples that they really did target these big naval ships, the navigators. It was sort of like you could get the information if you targeted certain people that weren't maybe have been in the service all that much longer, maybe had were a little bit whatever, a fit a profile. And certainly his shipmates who remember him say that he was very political, that he always talked about wanting to be into politics, that he didn't really want to get his hands dirty, that he was kind of elitist amongst them, and they didn't like him. They called him obnoxious. Several of them called him an obnoxious person. So that's who he was, and he was privy to this mission of going into. It was about a month long. They first went into
This is the Iran hostage crisis, right? So Carter has these hostages, and the Foster is going to be sent in on a mission to try and save these hostages, to try and rescue them.
Right.
And the mission goes horribly badly. Eight crewmen are killed, I believe, in a helicopter crash. And then there's some sort of
not on the Foster, though. The Foster turned around. Right. Of
the Nemitz.
So
the Nemitz was the other one that the aircraft came off. But he was in the periphery of that, which is what they're about to get to in that little piece that I was playing.
Yeah. And something happened within our naval intelligence where the Foster was supposed to go and be part of this, and they had been prepping, and something happened, and they were like, get out, get the Foster out of there. They turned around. Mm-hmm. And Bannon was really angry about that. And he talks about that, and he talks about disillusionment with Carter and all this stuff. But whatever the files that we have on that, they're missing. So the official documents around the Foster's role in some of this, and I have to look at that more carefully too. But it's in this Washington Post article that everybody can read. They're just gone. Poof, right? Those files are gone. So who knows what it was that had them pull the Foster out of the But
mission. It could have been some sort of security breach within the ranks of that of that crew. He goes back to the Pentagon, spends a few years there, and then leaves ultimately, because I don't think there was much more of a career for him there. But it's interesting that his sympathies always seem to lie with Reagan. Like he was very critical of Carter. He was very unhappy with the way Carter was handling things. And if you remember, Reagan pulled off this incredible election night, or I think it was Inauguration Day, actually, release of these hostages. And Carter was, played along very nicely. But it's certainly a very interesting set of events. Which make you look at Bannon differently.
It led into Iran-Contra. It was the October surprise, a very famous thing, and wrapped around in conspiracies, but also there's a lot of evidence. So it's one of those weird moments in our history.
But you can sort of see that he starts off as a political guy, even though he's in the military, and that just booms. Yeah. He told one of his colleagues before he left the Pentagon that he wanted to return one day as the Secretary of Defense. He didn't quite do that, but he certainly returned as a senior advisor. Eric, you had some breaking news, I think. Is that correct?
Well, this one's going to be to interest of LB. Apparently, Pecker is out as head of AMI.
Oh. Wow.
Not that surprising. But he was cooperating, right? Wasn't he?
Something's coming for him. I would say something's on the horizon there. Let's see what happens.
Just a thought.
Wasn't he cooperating with with at least Mueller at some point? He was cooperating, but I don't know if he's.
Do mobsters ever really cooperate, though? Isn't a real mobster is gonna be like, yeah, I'll tell you, I'll cooperate. I'll tell you, right?
Pecker with the that safe, that incredible safe of all that compromat, right? That we never know what'll happen. Some of it may even contain some Trump compromat, people suspect.
Nah, Trump has no compromise.
He did actually confirm with that intelligence report this week that there really was compromat. Which
the guy's a walking disaster area. Literally, just a walking disaster area.
I know. I don't know how we're going to quite get rid of him. I'm not sure he's going to leave on his own, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
You know what? We'll evict him. I'm not even worried about that nonsense. Biden will win, and he's out in January, and it's all just gaslighting nonsense, and there's nothing we need to worry about with regard to that.
I should mention, although we'll talk about it later on, that Biden was phenomenal last night.
Yeah, he was his best speech I think he ever gave in his life. It was amazing.
Yeah, electrifying, really, and just the theme of it, the light and dark, is the theme of our age, and it's also the battle we're in. We're in the battle between good and evil. It seems like who would have thunk that this is where we would land up, but this is where we are, and it's playing out in real time in front of us. And he is the perfect leader, I think, for this time. And Kamala Harris, of course. Also incredible choice there as a vice president.
She's amazing. She'll be president one day.
Oh yeah, she could have a 12-run term here if she plays everything well. You've met her a couple of times, haven't you, Andrew?
Yeah, I have. She's phenomenal. She's short, but she's like full of energy. It's incredible. She's just an amazing, powerful, smart, strong woman, and very, very, very likable. I had a really good conversation with her, and she's just very excited about her being VP and just seeing what happens in the future.
Yeah, they're going to be a really strong, powerful administration, and we haven't had one that's actually been functioning for a long time. So it's going to be nice. Hopefully, we can get it through, and we will. But let's get back to Bannon. So,
okay.
The next thing Bannon does, what does he do? I think he goes off and works.
Harvard. Yeah, no, he went to Harvard Business School.
Okay.
And had some friends in there. Sorry, guys, I have my allergies, so my nose is itching. And then from Harvard Business School, he went to Goldman Sachs, right into Goldman Sachs. He was in mergers and acquisitions there in the beginning, which in specializing in hostile takeovers. So that's an interesting desired skill set that he went in and gathered. And then
Hong Kong.
He persuaded them. He then was like, we got to get into comms, right? And because these cell phones were coming out, we're going to have cell phone technology, we're going to have signal technology. Let's get into that. So he says, and these are things he takes credit for, so who knows, but he says that he's the one who really pushed Goldman Sachs to get in on the Qualcomm stuff. So that was, Eric will love that little tidbit. That was apparently Bannon.
Why? It's interesting that he intersects with Hong Kong because of China, as we've discussed before. Yeah. And he went over there
for such a staunch opponent of China to hang out in Hong Kong.
Yes,
horrible.
He really doesn't like China. He really doesn't like China. So he goes there and he does this gaming thing, right? There's an illegal gaming operation there. Well, it seems to be illegal that they were charging.
That happened when he left Goldman Sachs. He went into his private. He started Bannon and Company, which was his private investment firm, and started gathering up clients. And so the IGE started in the mid-aughts, so early to mid-aughts. The 90s, where he was doing his own. He left Goldman Sachs. He was doing his own firm, and that's when he started. He was out here anyway in Los Angeles area, set up this sort of thing in Beverly Hills. And started getting really interesting money. Like if you're going to leave Goldman Sachs and they're not sending you with money to start some branch of something, you gotta raise money. You gotta get clients, or you gotta raise money to start investing. And And so
you just really need one. You just really need one client, like an intelligence service or something. That would be a perfect client.
Yeah, something like that would be ideal, as it turns out.
Well, he went right for Japan, right? He went right for Japan. He got money out of Japan, and so he just can't stay away from Asia. That's his place. And some people were like, okay, Bannon was a producer of films, or he had the Seinfeld stuff. He gets those EP credits because he was able to pull off some kind of financing. So whether it was a bridge loan or, some there's all kinds of ways that entertainment properties get financed out here. And so he was into the creative ways of doing that and buying up libraries and, bridging shit. And so you end up with this EP credit. That's why people will sort of see these producers with all these credits and think, oh, they're really big and powerful. And it's like, no, they just, have dirty money and they're throwing it into these films and getting a credit. So that's sort of, he did that, but he also did make his own propaganda films. And he tried to write screenplays. Oh, guys, I really did have a moment where his screenplay came to me. And they were
what?
Like, yes, this is years ago, years and years ago, very early.
I mean, that's just a natural progression. You go from Wall Street to making propaganda films. I mean,
that's right.
It's a no-brainer.
There's nothing espionage. There's not spy-like at all, right?
I thought the propaganda films came later, actually.
LB, were these great scripts? I mean, we do not want to make fun of his art.
It was so awful. It was so awful. And I was young. So, but I do have my gig. The thing that I do is I do the impossible shit. So and usually it's not someone's script. It's like a book that's hard to adapt or something like that. But it's like coming in and fixing stuff, right? That is going to die anyway. But they do throw a lot of money at people like me to fix shit. And this was it was unreadable. It's the word. It stuck with me so that when he showed up, I was like, "Is that fucker that wrote?"
Everyone was so surprised that he had this career, right? That he was able to become the senior advisor to the president of the United States. When did Len Blavatnik enter the picture for?
Well, Blavatnik is interesting because I don't know how. It's weird. But I mean, it's money laundering, so it's not weird in that sense. We can understand it, but how those dots got connected, I'm not certain. I'm gonna guess it was through Quatnitz and the firm, and this was all the ventures that Bannon had out here. But Bannon also had another great big client while he was trying to be a producer, and he was trying to be a screenwriter, and he was having all this money and investing shit, and it was that Prince, Always Been Talal. It was the same guy that bailed Donald Trump out. He got a shit ton of money into his firm that he managed for that Saudi guy.
Now he's also the owner or a big investor in Twitter and in Fox News, I believe. Mr. Talil is. Yeah, I believe.
He divested from Fox in late 2017.
Okay.
About 6 months after I called Fox in a political warfare operation from foreigners and got made fun of by the MSM. But the Saudis owned 30% of that at the time that they were making fun of that. Just thought I'd throw that out
there. He also owns the majority of Twitter right now, I believe. He's still the largest shareholder in Twitter. So
Bannon used to manage his money, and everybody needs to remember that. Yeah. He had a shit ton of this guy's money in the mid '90s, right at the same time that this guy was also, this sheik was also, or Prince, whatever the hell he is.
Now he's one of the richest men in the world. Why would he give Steve Bannon all his money to manage, or even some of his money?
Why wouldn't he give Steve Bannon all his money?
Well, I mean, Steve Bannon was like a bad scriptwriter. It's like, yeah, right? I mean, you could go to anybody. You could choose any gun in the world. You go to Steve Bannon. Here, Steve, take my fortune. Interesting.
He was out here and putting money into media properties and trying to do they went to try to buy up the Warner Music Group, which they succeeded in doing that. That's a huge library. And the Prince, I guess we're going to pull him on that deal. It didn't happen. It ended up being Edgar Bronfman.
Right? Yeah, I was thinking that. Wow.
The same guy that Jeffrey Epstein managed his money, that Ace Greenberg threw Edgar Bronfman and Jeffrey Epstein managed his money. So,
wow, it's such a small group of people. You just keep bumping into the same people over and over again. And we're coming to you, Eric Prince. We're coming to you. Don't you worry. We're getting to you today. So There's also a situation. There's a moment in time. I think. Sorry, Eric, if you want to jump in, go ahead. I'm just gonna. I think there was a moment.
I just wanted to ask Andy's opinion. So, what are the chances? Just your gut instinct, that somebody falls into navigator's, role on an aircraft carrier or part of Iran-Contra this, and then goes in Goldman Sachs, and ends up Hollywood where they suck. And kind of aren't great at anything, but then princes just give them all their money.
It happens all the time. Eric, honestly.
Okay, I'm from Vermont. I don't know.
I'm gonna. I'm a civil rights attorney right now. I'm gonna be an Olympic gymnast next month. And then I'm gonna be a multi-millionaire after that.
Yeah,
because someone's gonna give me trillions of dollars.
Right.
It just happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we know. Thankfully.
Oh, it was like that summer I had that. Okay, that was like that summer that I had that hedge fund for all of Iceland. Okay, I remember it now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly that.
I was a camp counselor. I was a policeman, and then I was a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund.
And I had a modeling agency, and I sold weapons.
I made Teslas,
and I was a screenwriter. Why are you saying espionage? I just happened to sell the country out to Russia and China. Why do you find that espionage?
I can't decide whether or not I'm going to be a hair model or start my own space agency. It's one or the other.
Why not both? You do both. You're right. To leverage the other.
Okay, guys, exactly. Right. The money I use from the hair, I will use with rocket ships. I'm going to roll with the rocket ships.
There you go. It's a good business plan. It's totally unique. No one's doing it.
I got it all planned out.
I feel like there's a red pill, and I think the red pill, and all of a sudden I'll have superpowers. Yeah.
Sure. Anything's possible. Speaking of which, Len Blavatnik and...
hold on.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, finish up. Go ahead.
I was just going to say...
sorry, Eric, do it.
Oh no, the theme here that we've been talking about with Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and now Bannon, there are all these masters of the universe who are fucking mediocrities. They're not good at anything except being owned by handlers. Because look, everybody else, the rest of us idiots, right? We have one, maybe two careers that we're good at, right? Like I got the intelligence management consulting thing, and also I was a bass player professionally, and played weddings and stuff like that. So I could make my living playing bass, I guess, insofar as one can. But that's pretty much it. I'm not also gonna dunk. I'm not going to be the center for the New York Knicks and have an aircraft company or anything.
You're just not as high achieving as they are.
A logistics company. A logistics company. Have that.
Logistics and run a global logistics company. Yeah. As George Carlin used to say, I'm a reasonably half-educated adult, and I've kind of landed on sort of a career and a half, maybe. And these guys who have we're doing banking, space travel, making all the movies, owning the color blue, and 4 political parties, and my house was financed by Kyrgyzstan.
Right. And my lovely wife.
And they're morons. They can't write. They can't talk. They don't look like they could get a date. And
I don't know I don't understand her body parts. I may not ever touch her, but they gave her to me. Oh God.
I mean, that's where she came from.
I've never had sex. How do you know we're not having it now?
Oh yeah. Anyhow, so the picture's becoming pretty clear. Then we get Blavatnik.
The Blavatnik stuff. Explain to people, this is something that I actually found, is that through Harvey Weinstein and the Weinstein Company, so Access Industries, which is Blavatnik's company, it did put money into Weinstein, and Weinstein has output deals. He has distribution deals. This is all part of film financing and distribution. And if you get into the back end of stuff, right, and you sort of look at, okay, where are the distribution deals being hooked up together? How is money maybe coming through one entity, from one entity through another into another person? So what I was looking at, I started with all right, let me understand these fucking Steve Bannon propaganda films. Like, where's the money coming from? How are they getting distributed? Who's carrying that? And lo and behold, in all of this, I don't know if you have this, I was finding the Weinstein Company, and I was finding that right around as a direct effect, and then I could find Access Industries and Access executives in there. I'm like,
I didn't actually get those graphics, but I've seen them for sure.
They're distributing his movies.
Mm-hmm. And this movie here, by the way, is called Border War: The Battle Over Illegal Immigration.
I say everyone can thank Harvey Weinstein and Len Blavatnik for that crap.
Well, there you
Otherwise,
go.
nobody can see it, right? They can make it. He could put his money into making it, but who's going to pick this shit up? And where are they going to push it? How are they going to get it out there? How's it? What are the splits? You know, there's a whole business.
If all this works out correctly, Harvey Weinstein and Bannon could reunite.
Maybe they can reunite.
Hold on. Number 3 producer on this turd. Border War, the battle over the shittiest movie ever. David Bossie, the guy behind Citizens United. This is a freaking spy ring. This is just spy money laundering.
It's
the whole
money
goddamn
laundering.
thing.
The whole damn thing. It gets.
Why is the guy behind the freaking Supreme Court case? Why is he number 3 on this turd-tastic movie? Why is this guy? Why was he the guy that's first on the scene with Trump with Lewandowski? Why are all these assholes showing up? I know you're going to have to beep this out. I don't care. It's Friday after this week. We deserve it.
That's fine.
Why are these assholes all showing up in the same 94 places?
Because they're all working together for a greater goal.
Eric, it's just a coincidence. All right. It's just, life's a circle. Karma.
Oh, God.
My good friend from college.
Ring ding.
They use like the Secret, that book on the Oprah Club, and that's where I've gone wrong. Man, you've got to just manifest your Cypriot bank account and your Maltese bank account and your Chinese rented yacht. You just gotta the movies you want to produce.
He didn't only stop at
fugitives, Chinese, fugitives from MSS, on their yacht and.
We're going to get there. That gets really interesting in just a little bit. There's so much criming going on. Back in the 2000s as well, he also produced a film called The Islamic States of America. He wrote it, at least he got it into development. It was never actually made. It's basically envisioned a United States taken over by Sharia law and what would happen in that event. You might say, here's a little, if you guys can read this little opening paragraph here. It says, the iconic image of the U.S. Capitol on a pristine spring day, the dome glistening under an azure sky and brilliant sun. As the camera pulls in, we notice something strange, something not right. Old Glory fluttering from its flagpole on the Capitol's portico looks different. But we can't put our finger on it. As we pull in, we see why. Instead of stars and stripes, the crescent and the star. 3 exclamation marks. Simultaneously, with this focus, we hear in a high-pitched chant, Allah Akbar, the Muslim call to prayer emanating from the Capitol itself. On the screen, in bold letters, the title, The Islamic States of America. Wow. Not propaganda. So this is.
Did they make it?
They never made it.
That's way better than what was put in front of mine.
I don't even think that would rate as toilet paper.
that was better than what you saw.
I just don't see it.
It's so this is Israeli kind of propaganda. This is kind of the Israeli mission in life to create this. Muslim foe that really exists or doesn't exist, depending on who you are. And this whole, fear around Sharia law and why we get Laura Loomer and all of those crowd of fanatics out there. This is all the same group of people. And so I don't know who he's spying for in this case, but it sure feels like this
Funded by the Saudis.
Funded by the Saudis.
Funded by the Emiratis. Funded by the Malaysians. They're just this is
find-
all projection.
There was never a war in Islam.
Find anyone who's maybe a little bit better at this than this guy. This is the best they could do. Was this?
That's my question.
Navigator.
Someone else to write it,
I mean,
you would be surprised.
It could be somebody else writing it. It could be a Mossad agent writing it or somebody else writing it. I mean, it could be anybody.
It could be anybody writing it, but Yeah, I mean, you would be surprised at how bad some of it is out here.
Oh, I'm sure. So he goes on to be the senior advisor to the president of the United States after doing this. This is incredible. Yeah.
I guess it makes sense.
So then after all these movies, then he does the IGE.
Then he does the IGE. Okay, I got my order wrong there. Then he does gaming.
2000.
Bannon does the sucking decathlon. He's just 10 different events that he sucks in all the way to the finish line.
He's being this guy that's like president of all these sort of multiple companies going on, right? So he's got his fund. Plus, he's like president of this gaming company that's called Infinity Media, served as CEO, based in Hong Kong. And the whole thing there, the whole scam there, that was a big scam too. But it was also about getting into the gaming community and seeing and fucking around with the people in there, because getting into the message boards, right? Getting into that, the whole world was emerging of we're going to play online, multiple users, and have gaming chat rooms. And he was going in there with this company and upselling people on here, buy this air over here.
You buy the magical swords and capes and the games and things like that, yeah. Which, by the way, at the time,
data profiling. They were data profiling. They're collecting data,
and it was illegal. According to this one article, it says there was one problem. The companies that owned and operated these fantasy games prohibited what IGE was doing and even considered it illegal. So there's another crime because he likes
criminal.
It's just a small crime. It's just light. It's a light felony. It's not.
Yeah, probably worth billions of dollars.
It's a light felony.
Bannon became the company's vice chairman. He became the company's vice chairman for that one.
That guy is a real character.
So fast forward to our more modern crime that we've been looking at. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, was that fast forward?
I do Breitbart.
Oh yeah, Breitbart. Let's talk about Breitbart. I'm sorry, I don't have any supporting graphics for this, but we all know what Breitbart looks like, and I wish I had that photo, but we don't.
Well, if you have a photo of a toilet that hasn't been flushed, then that's good enough.
Very hilarious. Netanyahu. The pictures of Netanyahu and Bannon.
No.
Andrew Breitbart.
In 2007, but Bannon was a founding board member, so he was involved from the beginning. And then when Andrew Breitbart died, Bannon took over.
I don't think people realize Netanyahu was there at the very dawn of that great media empire known as Breitbart. It was born in Israel. Born in Israel.
And that Breitbart also helped start Huffington Post.
Oh, interesting.
Huh.
Interesting. So, that became a very big tool for him in the administration. In fact, in the campaign, because if you remember, Breitbart was the main vehicle for carrying all of the WikiLeaks leaks with the administration's point of view, because Bannon was at the time, I think, still the publisher, or at least had a podcast on Breitbart, because he was the co-owner, I think, of it with the Mercers. The Mercers owned it, and then they also owned Cambridge Analytica, which was convenient because they could
Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah, they could
Cambridge.
Yeah,
nothing to do with Russian intelligence services. Nothing.
No, nothing. I mean, there was that Russian spy guy that was involved from Cambridge, but nothing other than that.
Not as successors or affiliated companies. Nothing to do with IRS at all.
Nothing. No. It's just an independent company that, in his spare time, he was able to figure out how to fuck with people's minds, and he did it very successfully. He was able to rig the entire system because he's that kind of talented, obviously.
He's amazing. Like Kim Jong-un. Every day it's something new and miraculous that goes on with this guy.
Yep. It's he's super, super talented.
I don't think we've ever seen
his ice dancing team.
I think he's missing the horseback riding. Don't they always end up on a horse, these guys?
Can you imagine?
No shirt on.
Sure.
That's what I'm doing right after this. I'm going to go horseback riding without a shirt on.
In the mountains.
See out there, bro.
And Putin will
find
be there
some
too.
Mountains, and they're all mine.
Alpha, total alpha man.
Yes.
Yeah. Then he's Trump's campaign manager.
Right, and so in
Manafort is mixing it up with Russian intelligence, and he had to go. And it comes
something interesting I found in the intelligence
the coveted
report.
polling data somehow finds its way into GRU hands.
Oh
it's just
some polling data publicly available. So
all of it's covered data. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is new, and I found this fascinating. It comes out of the Senate Intelligence reporting. So in April and May 2016, Roger Stone called Rick Gates 67 times, Paul Manafort 64 times, Eric Prince 67 times, and Steve Bannon, who wasn't even yet part of the campaign, several times. So wow, this was all around the time that they were releasing all the WikiLeaks stuff. So, if there was coordination, maybe in these 67, 64, 67 phone calls, that coordination would have happened.
Is that a pattern, Mr. Laufer? You do
a pattern in practice
stuff?
I mean, they just might be really good friends, and sharing makeup tips and
actually, we have some detail about what they did. Let me see if I can pull some up here. It's this one, I think. So apparently in one conversation, this is on October 3rd, Bannon told Eric Prince, did you ever know that Eric Prince and Steve Bannon was so close? I didn't know that. A little bit from Mueller, but this was interesting. Bannon had spoken to his friend in London last night, often euphemism for Julian Assange. The payload is still coming. Payload.
So Bannon knows all about the Assange mob as well, not just Stone.
Apparently Stone was the main contact, but it seems like Bannon is read into it, and so is Eric Prince. Who would have thunk that Eric Prince would have been read into the same thing as well? And he's just a donor to the campaign. He's not even a member of the campaign staff. And so, wow, that's interesting. The conversation goes like this. So then on October 4th, when the payload didn't arrive, I guess there was a payload was coming, the payload didn't show up. Bannon tells Stone, sorry?
I said I hate when my payloads don't show up.
Oh, no, you want your payloads.
Horrible.
Payload doesn't learn.
And he says, what was this? What was that this morning? I guess when the payload didn't show up. I mean, so God knows what they're talking about there. So Stone responds, fear, serious security concern. He, meaning Assange, thinks they're going to kill him. And the London police are standing done. I think he means down. However, a load every week coming forward. So there's loads. They're coming.
They got to think about baseball more.
Caravans and the payloads. You got to watch out for them.
I am insulted. I want to explain this a little bit. Just much like when the mobsters are using their very own Title III intercept machine, to blather on WhatsApp and whatnot. Like the FBI's like, thank you, that was easy. I'm insulted for my Italian forebears who, kept using some old dialect, and even then went out in the park, not near something electric, and spoke in code. Even then, I'm insulted on Spook for just Spook tradecraft. It's like, it's supposed to be, oh, I heard you're going on the vacation to Florida. That's so great. Yeah, but I'm worried that the flight's not going to show up on time. No, I think it'll show up on time. You're supposed to have a different goddamn topic to hide. Like, I talked to the guy in London, the guy from Australia with the spy thing we're doing. But the spy thing didn't happen last night. No, they think they might kill him because he's a spy. Like, what the? How is that involved?
Eric, I blame it on high fructose corn syrup and stupidity. That's why that happens.
You mentioned
I blame this on eating lead paint chips when you're a kid. These handlers in Russia.
Sure.
You mentioned WhatsApp because it does come up here in exactly that context. Because Prince then tells Stone that later on that day, hey, did Assange chicken out? And then Stone is like, not sure. I'll just check. Did you hear from London? He then asks later on, and as Stone says, want to talk on a secure line? Got WhatsApp?
This was in the Senate Intel. We missed it.
This is in Volume 5. I don't know why Comey didn't have it. I mean, it's like, got WhatsApp?
They're in the backyard of GCHQ. The whole entire London neighborhood around these idiots is just one large SIGINT collection device. And they're like, want to talk on WhatsApp? It'll be secure. I can't, people. Zuckerberg owns it, and he's a genius. I can't.
They're like in Harrods enjoying some cocktails. Right, like they're because it's right there.
It's right there.
You're just like listening like this. Everyone thinks they're on their cell phones, but they're just listening.
But these guys weren't even pretending to hide this. I mean, they just weren't even. They were just. I don't know what they're doing, but
I mean, in all honesty, Zev, you can't really blame them. I mean, stupidity has that effect on people. They just, they're stupid.
But why? Why? How did this not register with Mueller as a conspiracy or collusion? I still struggle with this because it looks to me like it's kind of obvious. I mean, it's not like.
I think it did.
I think it did. I think we kind of had some people interrupt Mueller, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. I don't know. My personal opinion is I don't think we've heard the last of the Mueller investigation and what may have transpired or grown out of it.
Well, we certainly are seeing the. So go ahead.
Talk a little bit about that, Andrew. Of like, what is it about these grand juries? They're still ongoing. I know this seems like we're boiling everything. I always have to boil everything down to the basics for everybody because we're all under such mental stress and attack. It's sort of like just the basics of why we might not know any of this, or it's not penetrated. Like what happens with grand juries and these investigations?
Well, grand juries have been around for a very long time, hundreds and hundreds of years. Go back to different types of and forms of it, from the Magna Carta. So basically, what a grand jury is a secretive, grouping of people who come in to determine whether or not, after reviewing evidence for a prosecutor, that a crime, there was probable cause for possibly a crime being committed. And as I said, it's secretive. The identifications of grand jurors are private and coveted, and you can't get any of that information, nor should you. There's just, I remember, I forgot who, I don't know if it was Caputo or some of the other Trumpers were trying some insane argument about negating the power of the grand jury. It was some crazy thing that they put up, in DC circuit. It just had no shot in hell of working. But essentially that's what it is. For serious crimes, grand juries are the ones that make the determination, for the most part, whether or not charges should be leveled against an individual. I mean, you can have a law enforcement officer still charge someone, with a criminal complaint, but grand juries really are sacrosanct, and that's their job.
And they should be, right? I mean,
how long can they go on? In terms of things being redacted, because this might be part of an ongoing
investigation, correct? And it needs to be.
It can always come back together to hear more on that case, or how does that work?
What'll happen is grand juries usually sit for, I think it's about 18 months, okay? And they may hear many different cases. If it's a complex case, they may just focus on one. The reason why a lot of times you may have redactions and things of that nature is because there already may be sealed indictments. The grand jury may have been completed, and they have already chosen to indict. And that particular bit of information is part of that sealed indictment, and they don't want to disclose that information, until they unseal. There's a number of different, that's primarily the reason why, it's frustrating. I know. We want to get at it. We want to see Trump's tax returns. We want to know that we're sticking it to Russia or China, from an intelligence perspective. But obviously, for the same reason, we don't want to disclose sources and methods in intelligence situations, and in legal situations. You don't want to disclose how a prosecutor may be going after a bad guy, what information they have, because, then it may lead to spoliation of evidence. They may destroy evidence. They may stop doing what they're doing and close up shop, and that may kill a case. So, I mean, there's some real world.
How long can an indictment be sealed? So a sealed indictment means the person on the other side of it doesn't even know they've been indicted, right?
Correct. Yes.
Sort of
not all the time. They can know
evidence or other individuals, or they're deciding why. Why are they waiting? Why would one wait? Why would a prosecutor wait? How long would a sealed indictment sit there that came out of a grand jury?
It could be any number of different reasons. A lot of times that people are subject of a grand jury or a law enforcement investigation will receive a target letter from that law enforcement, from the FBI or whatever. If they're tapped, the phones are tapped. Sometimes when the tapping is over, they'll send a letter to the individuals whose phones were tapped. Any number, they could still be building the case. These could be low-level operatives that they're, like we're dealing with Bannon and Prince and all these other guys. They're really low-level. They're the public face of really the the powerful people behind them that are really pulling the strings here. So when they get these lower level guys, they want to get to the top. They want to build a case. It may be a RICO case. You don't know what type of thing the prosecutor may be working on, which is really why it could take a long time to really build these cases.
And when they show,
I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. I'm going to stop talking.
No, it's good. It's good
no,
stuff.
I love this. No,
no, man, we need to know this.
So, and then would they show an indictment maybe to the person who's indicted and say, this is now what we're going to enact against you unless you can help us? Is that how they roll up? Do they use the indictment?
They can. They may not necessarily. I'm sorry, LB, if you want to finish, I apologize.
No, that's it. I just wanted to hear that from you.
They can. I mean, there are many different ways that law enforcement would go, like the FBI would go at someone. They may not show them an indictment per se. They may just show them evidence that they have. They may play a recording. They may say this. They may say that. To kind of, if they want to flip someone, say, look, we've got all this juice on you. We'll do this plea agreement here, and we'll waive all these, crimes if you testify on our behalf against X, Y, and Z. And if they're smart,
they take
the
deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when they take the deal, is it recorded? Do they sign their name?
In terms of plea agreement? Yeah, they will actually sign a plea agreement that has to be approved by the court. The court will have to say, okay, this is reasonable and fair, and they'll allocute the guilty plea on the record to make sure they'll ask you weren't intoxicated in any way at the time that you executed this, things of that nature. So they'll lay it all out there for to preserve the person who's pleading guilty their constitutional rights, which is what they should do. I mean, this is what Flynn is dealing with right now, and he's not getting out of anything, in my opinion. So, but
who do you think? Who do you think whose plea agreement do you think you might be around? It could be interesting to look at.
I think it's important for people to understand the process and the history of this, and there are kinds of agreements that happen to turn people. When Andy says flip, he means you're turning someone into a cooperating witness, right? And so there are deals where those don't get seen. So part of it is that actually also gets kept private, kept under seal.
So
and those cooperating agreements can last for decades. These people go into WIPRO, or they go into protective custody, and they're just constantly feeding. They may still be acting in their capacity as a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like Whitey Bulger, for example.
Still criming and profiting off that crime.
But my point is, there's paper.
There's paper. Yeah. There's paper. I know who you're talking about.
It's really good paper. It's great, heavy laden paper that these things are written on.
There was some superseding indictments actually unveiled in court in London a few weeks ago regarding Julian Assange, because we're not quite sure what they are, but we know that they were.
Sad, I mean, the guy was just trying to report the news, and it's
just a journalist out there working hard.
I mean, espionage, journalism, it's the same thing, right?
It is basically the same thing, yeah, of course.
The whole thing.
It's
I can't stand these guys. I'm sorry. It's a little personal opinion there, but whatever.
This is just awful. Actually, I will say that it's really dangerous for journalists. The more journalists get discredited like this and get attached to these intelligence organizations, the harder it is to go and do the actual work out there, like reporting. I mean, in the United States, it's still fairly safe to do it, but in other parts of the world, journalists need to be seen as independent. You can't suddenly fake them as claim your intelligence assets are journalists, because journalists will die because of that. Someone's going to make that mistake.
Right. In general, journalists like to live. They don't like
generally
to eat or go to jail or die.
We like to report the news.
Exactly. Look at Russia. What's happened. I mean, you have a number of journalists that have stood up to the Putin regime, and they end up not so good. Not so well. I don't even think there's opposition journalism at all. People that try to stand up in China, they don't last very long there.
No, they don't. In fact, in China, they get locked into this digital prison where they can't do anything. They get completely isolated from the world, but because they get cut off from every digital access point.
So and if their organs are fresh, there's always that aspect too.
So that's the stuff that really upsets me aside from the fact that it's the worst espionage in the world. But
I don't mean to be pithy about it, but it's really, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. A lot of collateral damage.
And this is why I'm very angry as a citizen with how the Fourth Estate in the United States handled this entire situation for the last 4 or 5 years, because they are given protections that are very broad and they have a lot of responsibility, and they are not in the situation that the journalists in Ukraine and Belarus and Russia and China are, where to tell the truth will get you killed, acid thrown in your face, your family beaten, real consequences. These people were afraid in many cases to not get invited to fucking dinner parties.
Partly
because they didn't want to be too crazy things. Not saying everybody, but there's plenty of people who didn't want to sound crazy, and they attacked people. And because a bunch of us were on that crew, they attacked people who said what is now, as of this week, out plain as day. These were intelligence operations. This was to attack the United States. They were broad-reaching, and for anyone who even dared break away from the Hillary Buttery Mails narrative, you got attacked. In some cases, your career got attacked, your family got targeted, and that was from the people that were supposed to be fighting for freedom. And then in other countries, those people were willing to die for the chance to potentially be like this country, and our own media threw that gift in the trash in the last 4
needs a lot of work. What happened with the news industry, and it's an industry, so that's the troubling part of it. Probably from the very beginning is that it's still considered a business, but the layers of there are ways in a news organization that stories get killed. And it often gets killed, it goes up to legal and stays up in legal forever and never comes back down. Or suddenly the lawyer is picking apart every tiny little, sentence that you've got there. And you're thinking, well, why this story? And then you realize that the story is being killed slowly through the legal department or through an editor saying, well, that's a really controversial story, so we're going to need more evidence. Why don't you go back and do another 6 weeks of work on this until we have real proof that, that Trump is a Russian asset, or whatever, when it was pretty obvious to everybody this is what was going on. That's the kind of slow death the story goes through sometimes in news organizations. And there's nothing you can do about it because they're all private entities owned by a lot of the same people who are, subsidiaries of Russian. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to say what I'm saying.
It's about money.
Yeah, it's about money. It's about money.
It's about money. I think it's also this. We're all having to navigate this very careful space of, you don't want to push the fake news thing, yet we have a failure of journalism. We have journalism malpractice happening all over the place. And it does seem to be about the corporate mercenary aspect of what news is now, right? That's a term that Melissa Jo Peltier, who we all love so much, she's a great account. I just love her.
Yeah, she's terrific.
Wonderful person too, but I hadn't heard that phrase used quite like that. She used it, I think, this week. It's because they're
which one?
It's news is mercenary now, the corporate mercenaries, right? That's the that it's it felt really right. So it's not that it's not about the fakeness of anything, because there's just such amazing journalism that is happening right now, better than it's ever happened ever in our history.
Right, there is terrific, and lots of great reporters doing great work all the time.
Right? Yeah. But also this corporate mercenary structure going on, we all saw that, and some of them just said it right from the very beginning of Les Moonves says, great for CBS, Trump is great for us, so. What are we gonna do?
I mean, I've had a couple of stories killed in my life that based on just someone's corporate agenda, and it's
throwing the safety of our nation under the bus for a bottom line. It really it's offensive.
It's sick, and I think the thing is the loop that we've all been in is that we have needed somebody to articulate the stakes. We're always looking for other people to articulate the stakes. It's never been the people ourselves. We're all independent voices. Andy's lawyer, we kind of found each other at the same time. Where I remember when you were like answering questions and people were like, oh my God, it's an attorney answering your questions. So you had, and your Twitter account exploded because it was like we were having this open conversation about what was going on, and we needed expertise from here and expertise from there. And Eric was, same thing with him, and me. I'm like, well, there's some organized crime going on here. Like I kind of studied this stuff. I know. Here. So, all these voices of expertise we have been experts for journalists before. They've talked to us. They still talk to us. We still, but what happened was, it was like the people had to rise up and start bringing the facts forward and and find the narratives and put the narratives forward, because we weren't getting that from the Fourth Estate for how we'd all been set up. We weren't receiving that. No one was articulating the stakes of what this actually is. It's a fucking narrative warfare. We're being attacked. Our democratic processes were attacked. This man is crime. He's owned by now 4 transnational organized crime lords. And so it took us coming in and articulating the stakes, and what we all saw personally, because we were bigger voices, right, entering into the fray, is this convulsion back at us, right, of like, you don't know what you are, you don't know what you're talking about, we're what you're not. And it's like, well, look, you're missing it. You're missing the fucking story.
And we kept saying it, and then Mueller comes out, and they're saying, oh, you see, we told you were wrong. And that was annoying.
No one bothered to read anything. No one bothered to read the Mueller report.
Right.
None of these. A lot of the journalists did, and a lot of people didn't. We did. We did, and
even the 15 of us who did, we learned a lot.
It's just chock full of like fraud. I mean, it's like a fraud, cornucopia. It's incredible how rudimentary this enterprise they engaged in was. GoFundMe. I'm going to raise $25 million on GoFundMe to build a wall on the Mexican-American border. Which the government may have some issue with that to begin with. You're kind of usurping the power of the federal government to delineate its own borders. But let's put that aside from now. You're also kind of using this money for your own personal, I don't know, how should I say?
Cosmetic surgery, I think, at one point.
Image, your what kind of car you drive, and buying properties or buying polo shirts and popping the collar up or whatever the heck you're doing with it. It's just, how dumb are you? How brazen and just stupid are you to do something like this?
I do want to say
they're dead on this prosecution. These guys, they're done.
Oh, because there's so much more. I'm going to go into their new crimes in a bit, but I do want to say, for the crowdsourced in that effort that went on Twitter, we just have to underline this, that we're all benefited from and part of, and part of this great community that found the facts of what was really going on Twitter. Are the true journalistic heroes of Trump Russia, because these hundreds of, maybe even thousands of people whose names, some of them we don't even know by name, but we would find these incredible avenues to go dig into and get every little fact about the most minute thing, and combine it and work together with other people and collaborate and slowly put together the story of Trump Russia. And they are the true, I mean, when I read the 1,000 pages of from the other day from the Senate Intelligence Committee, I was like, well, every single fact here, well, most of the facts here, the big broad facts, were already discovered by the crowdsourced community of Twitter, and they are they genuinely need to be recognized for that incredible, because it's like soccer moms. It's all of us, but it's also it's not the people who you would think would be the heroes saving a republic, and yet they are the heroes saving.
Hair models like me.
Yeah, top earning number one hair models like you.
What also needs to be said is, and working professionals. Yeah. So we all have jobs.
Yeah.
We have lives and families. And so this is why I get people yelling at me, what are you doing up at 3:30 in the morning? I'm like, I'm doing this, motherfuckers. What? Because I got to work too. And then I got to get my kid ready for the, school. And and then somehow now we've got the pandemic, and I'm the only one really to go out and do the shopping. And so it's like,
It's a lot of work.
That's the other side of it. I think if journalists feel like us as our voices, if we get frustrated or upset, I've got blocked because I get upset. Somebody blocked me. I wish he'd unblocked me, but it's okay. I was really bitchy to him. Oh my God. On Twitter, but it was like, aren't you a journalist? Don't you have, this is your career. You get a budget for this. You have, people helping you. You're supposed to be doing this shit, not me. And I'm doing it because you're not.
But the fact that you did it and so many other people did it is just an incredible story. I think it's just amazing that this is where the citizenry stood up, and where the fourth estate was failing, they were like, "Well, we'll do it. We'll figure it out." And
they needed us too. It was too big of a story, but
I mean, the thing, what it comes down to, the basis of what it comes down to, is that we just love our country.
Mm-hmm.
We want our families living in a country that we grew up in, and that we can believe in, and that we can trust, and not influenced by foreign adversaries, or paid or to the highest bidder. And I mean, at least that was my motivation. I want my family safe. I want them not to have to deal with a dictatorship or the loss of freedom.
Right. It comes down to freedom.
Someone said, a number of people said this to me, and I agree with it. I mean, America's strength is in its people. And I think that's been demonstrated by a number of us who stood up, at risk of, career or, stresses with family and things of that nature. We stood up and we said, no, enough. We're going to do what we need to do to help people understand what's really going on. And, I think that is a great thing.
It's an idea worth fighting for. That too. You don't see people standing up for autocracies because they're not worth fighting for. But this is one that's really worth it.
Well, didn't 20 people show up for the Lukashenko counter demonstration today? It was like 3. Most of them were his cousins or something, or people that they couldn't shoot if they didn't protest on his behalf.
Yeah, I'm sure you could get a few people together. Eric, you jump in.
And it shows you just how weak Russia really is, and how all of this were just propaganda ops, and they got a hold of the right chowderheads at the same time to pull us off here. And we weren't vigilant enough, because Putin can't even keep Belarus in line. That's his backyard. That is how fast his regime is collapsing. I mean, China. China's talking about autarky. They're talking about, saving, eat all your food on your plate, because they're realizing the world is going to lock them out of financial markets and everything else. Because it's like, stop sending us your goddamn spies and stop poisoning people. And both of you, all of you, anyone part of this crew, we're not going to put up with it. And, you came for us and you didn't know who we were. We are Americans. We don't back down from this stuff. And you better get somebody better than Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner to try and take this country out.
Yeah. Let's complete this. So we're running out of time, and I just want to get to one thing. So, Steve Bannon in his most recent iteration has been running another op. This time he's been critical of China for a bunch of things, with coronavirus and this weird sort of odd view of the coronavirus. Not that, some of it was accurate, but of course mixed in with a lot of craziness. And he was doing it with Mr. I don't know, I'm going to Wengi. I don't know how you say that, but he's a Chinese billionaire who claims to be a dissident and anti the Chinese government, very vocal about it. But
serious dissident living on that, what is it, $35 million yacht.
$35 million yacht, spent 3 decades building up a fortune in real estate in China, and not once did he say anything bad about the regime while he was making all that money. Suddenly he pops up in the West, and he's
it pays well.
It pays well. And so these two guys, this is another scheme. This is a scheme that's still being investigated right now. Had set up a $300 million scheme, really, to set up what they were going to call another YouTube. They're going to set up a new YouTube. They got $300 million investors to invest in this, and of course there is no setup for a new YouTube. They had nothing. They were doing nothing. They did nothing. They did podcasts about coronavirus. And so, these investors are out there, bulked out of, $500 million each, or, some ridiculous amount of money. And this is currently being investigated right now. So if if Bannon's woes weren't serious enough with the latest arrests and indictments, there's more coming. There's more coming, Steve.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to end for him. I think there's going to be a lot. He lied also. You know, he lied to the Senate. He lied under oath. Yeah. It's going to be bad. You don't strut around and talk about Darth Vader and think that you're going to, you know, these are the fantasy. You know, he's also a lunatic. I mean, he's a very bad, nasty operative. He has his story has all the telltale signs of someone who's been owned by a foreign power and doing business with you know the bad guys for decades and decades, and slithering around in the crevices of grossness, right? Figuring out where he's going to get up in there with some money and some ops, and so he's got all that, but he's also crazy. You know, you have to be a madman to have this life and think that it's going to work out okay for you.
Somehow he did. You know, he seems to have associated himself with.
It's going to last longer than this guy.
He's going to retire in the Seychelles or whatever that place.
The Seychelles.
It also is worth mentioning he is an Eric Prince partner, is he not? Like he's.
The Chinese Eric Prince Steve Bannon thing is so interesting because, you know, Eric Prince works for the Chinese. The Frontier Service Company, whatever it is called now, is actually owned by a Chinese zillionaire who is the former chairman of CITIC Group, who's very close to Xi. So there's a very close relationship, like 2 degrees of separation between Eric Prince and Xi. And then there's also the new Cambridge Analytica called Emerdata, which Wendy Siegelman was broke. That is owned by Bannon, the Mercers, some guys from the same Chinese company, and so you can sort of see efforts in where that data went to was around this Chinese entity. It's basically a Chinese entity, and I think we're going to find out down the line that that piece of it, the Steve Bannon piece, the Eric Prince piece, was all China. And when they
and you also got to look at Steve Bannon's connections to right-wing groups, you know, far right-wing groups in Europe, which clearly have connections to RIS. Right. So, you know, we have that, and then we have, you know, the Bannon Prince and how Bannon fits into. I mean, Prince fits into the Bannon, you know, work he does with China. It's very interesting, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you know, there's Israel, Saudi Arabia, UAE as well. They're all in there, but you know, it's a multinational group of countries that certainly had a bad skiing going, really bad skiing.
It's sort of you know, what used to be sort of big arms deals, which Jared seems to be, you know, very happy to still be involved in these big arms deals. Still doing it, but there really has been this movement into data, right, for these sort of dark intelligence private intelligence groups where, you know, like we're going to do within it's all about big caches of data and owning populations, and
but owning us and surveilling us and knowing everything we're doing and monitoring us so they can control their pockets of wealth. And you know, that's how they think they can turn, you know, this into a digital dystopia. I don't know. They don't get America. They don't get America.
And they know.
Are you going to eat that data?
How's that going to keep you? Yeah. What are you going to do? You're going to eat that data in that hole? Because what are they doing? What are they talking about now? What? Oh, and in your New Zealand bunker. I mean, by the way, you know who sold Wengi that yacht that they got? Can we just take a second and just enjoy the fact that they've been screwing with the Postal Service, and we didn't realize that was going to be our Thermopylae for our 300, that like, go no further than the Postal Service. We were all ready to die for the post office. No one saw that coming. And it was the Postal Investigative Service
that arrested him. That was a good
we just luxuriate in how awesome that is.
And it's so funny. I mean, you know, they're planning world domination on WeChat and Signal. You know, I mean,
5 of them. A group of 5 people.
You got MSN. You got
5 of them.
All 5.
You got these idiots. Just, you know, I'm gonna. You know, it's just incredible. I mean, it's mind-bogglingly stupid. How ridiculous these guys are.
It's like Keystone Cops. It really is. It's just a shocking display.
What are they like at the NSA? Like they're working on quantum decryption. mean, what are they doing at NSA head? Like they're at the Puzzle Palace. They're working on Zeta scale, whatever, man, of decoding things that are 30 years from now. And they're like, no, it all comes down to 6 guys, and they've got an Atari 2600 and some walkie-talkies.
Yeah. And look, they were well funded. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of money that was thrown at this operation, and it stuck. I mean, a lot of it stuck.
Yeah. And they're using their own iPhones. Well, I mean, they're using their own Google phones. They have billions of dollars that can go into these Saudi vehicles and whatnot, and no one can invent like a special tricked out walkie-talkie. Nobody would they no just upload this app from the Google Play Store.
Just use WhatsApp. Yeah, just use WhatsApp. Facebook, you can trust Facebook.
Yeah.
No, not even Pig Latin. Not even.
Wait, Eric, you have some. Are you still going, Zeph?
No, I'm all out of material here, but we should probably end the show.
What do you think, Andy? What do you think in terms of? You were saying before the show, so I want everyone to hear it from you because people may not know, because I do interact with Andy a lot, and so you can kind of see that. But behind the scenes, Andy's the one that I'm like, Andy, and he's like, no, calm down, it's okay. And then I can be really calm with everybody else. But behind the scenes, I'm like, I don't understand how many times can he just keep appealing these damn tax returns forever? And keep appealing this. I'm going to appeal the third comma in the second paragraph now. I'm appealing that shit. When does it end, Andy? So just so you guys all know, I'm just
think of it this way.
I have those free pass, but I give them to Andy. And Andy,
I appreciate that. Just think of it this way, though. The procedures that Trump and his cohorts are exploiting or taking advantage of also protect us. We want to be able to have all these appeals. We want to be able to petition the court whenever we feel our rights are being violated. So it's not necessarily it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that our courts still work this way. It's a good thing that our institutions are strong and they haven't been permanently damaged or destroyed because of these WhatsApp idiots that are roaming around the halls of our government here. So, you got to look at it from that perspective. You got to look at the mirror image of it. Would you want to have the ability to do this when your rights have been violated? All right. The courts are fed up with Trump, at least on this. I'm sure they're fed up with him on a lot of things, but they're fed up with him, especially on this tax thing. It's not going to go anywhere. I highly doubt SCOTUS is going to grant cert on it. I don't. The Second Circuit rather.
What does that mean? What is cert? What does cert mean?
Grant certiorari, meaning that they'll grant permission to make an appeal to the Supreme Court. You have to file a petition for certiorari with the Supreme Court. That's what it's called. It's the fancy Latin.
Fancy words.
To certify.
Can I appeal to you? Can I appeal to you again? Is what would be asking.
Well, basically, no. I mean, a certiorari is what, let's say, a circuit court, around the country doesn't rule in your favor, and you want to petition the Supreme Court to weigh in on your matter. You have to file a petition for a writ of certiorari to get permission. You need permission to come before the court in order for your argument to be heard. And if they grant it, then hey, they may grant you a stay on any kind of legal issue that may become a nullity if they don't grant a stay. Like turning over Trump's tax returns. Once the returns are out of the bag, so to speak, that's it. There's no it's a nullity at that point because it's already it's already been done.
I'm going to let you guys continue this conversation offline because I am not following all the details of it. But
here's the thing: is because specific to the tax returns. So Trump didn't.
We've got 1 minute. We really are late today.
He keeps appealing, and people are like, "When is this going to end? When are they just going to say no? You have to release it."
The second, so it looks like it's a good sign. Let me just say this: the good sign is Second Circuit did not grant a stay. Okay. That's a good sign, and then it's going to be heard later. The petition is going to be heard later on, I think, in the month or next month. I highly, and Vance can move in there and say, hey, compel production of this stuff, and he's going to have to produce it. I don't think SCOTUS is going to grant a stay either for Trump to be able to perfect his appeal to the Supreme Court. That means that, by the time, all these appeals get filed, it's going to be too late because Vance is going to have all these documents because it's going to move to compel them. The court's going to order it.
Interesting.
I hope you follow that.
Interesting. I did follow that. I did follow that.
All we want to know is there a point where he hits a brick wall and he has to do it?
Yes, and it was. And Andy said it today, 9 hours ago. I'm looking at his timeline right now. His next thing is to challenge the judge to a Big Mac eating contest, because that's what he's got. Mr. Laffer,
that's what's going to happen.
Boy, this has been a terrific show. I love you guys. Thank you very much for coming on, and I learned so much today. LB, your resource on Steve Bannon is quite phenomenal. I'm impressed.
Oh,
she's badass. He knows a lot
one of my guys in there. I got the Mark Burnett and I got the Steve Bannon, and I've been watching and tracking them for a long time.
We did see a lot of action this week. It looks like things are going down, and after this many years, it's good to see. Let's go quick final thoughts, Eric. Or not? I love doing that to Eric. LB.
That's it.
Tell us about your jersey super quick. You're wearing that jersey.
Oh, the Islanders.
No, this is the St. Louis Blues.
This is how much I know sport.
Yeah, the current champions. Joe Biden was talking about something his mama told him about bullies. That when he got bullied, to go out and bloody their noses. And I think the theme going forth, you had a fake tough guy who would make fun of people with handicaps, right? And now we have a real man who's running for president, a real adult who's not owned by foreign intelligence services. And he's at one end of the spectrum, you've got him being just incredibly sweet to a kid who like him has a stutter and gets up in front of the nation, and he's going to take care of that kid and give him dignity and give him a starring role in the narrative that we tell ourselves that no, we are good to people that are different. We are good to people that are afraid that where they're not going to be accepted. No, they're part of us. They're just like us, and that doesn't come from the middle or the bottom. That comes from the guys on top. That's our leadership. And and he's sweet to the elevator lady who gets to nominate him and says, "That's my friend Joe Biden." That's on one end, and on the other end is my mama also told me, when I see bullies, hit them in the nose and make them bleed. And I love that bookend, because we're not going to be super sweet coming out of this. We're going to be sweet to the people and give comfort to the people that need it, and a lot of people need it. And if you are our enemies, you're going to lose sleep tonight. And I love that.
I love that too. On that note, I'll leave you with some. Go for it, Andrew.
Oh, okay. All I'm going to say is his truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Mm-hmm. The terrible swift sword. It's coming.
It is coming. And on that note,
you're going to prison, Andy. Is
that traitor going to prison?
They're all
You're going to prison, traitor.
And here's Joe Biden from last night to take us out.
This is our moment to make hope and history rhyme with passion and purpose. Let us begin, you and I together, one nation, under God, united in our love for America, united in our love for each other. For love is more powerful than hate, hope is more powerful than fear, and light is more powerful than dark. This is our moment, this is our mission.
Support Narrative's independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative, and check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and download.